Okay, so this is the second half of my grade 8 story, and where we left off was my mom didn't show up to the grade 8 graduation where I got a citizenship award, and my grandparents were there, which was great. And so after grad, my grandparents went back to their home in Toronto, and I stayed at Vic's house overnight. And I don't remember, there wasn't really a party or anything, but I do remember spending the night at Scott's house and there being this huge ruckus in the middle of the night and Scott coming out in all of his football gear to try to get this bat to go out of the window. It was funny. So I stayed that night at Vic's house, and then I asked my mom if I could stay for a second night because I was pretty upset that she didn't come to my graduation, but I just didn't want to face her yet. And it was the best I'd been feeling in weeks because of the chicken pox that I had. So I stayed a second night. And then the third night, things kind of got a little weird. I remember talking with my mom on the phone and her asking if I wanted to go to Montreal. Again, this Montreal thing. It's like she felt that she could just start over by going to a new place, and she wanted me to go with her. And I was telling her, like, I don't want to go to Montreal. Like, don't you remember what happened a year ago? We just ended up coming back here. I was going into high school. I wanted something stable. I just didn't want to have to, like, move around all the time. I had even considered in my head that, maybe Victoria's family could take me in at some point, that I could just have somewhere to stay so I could go to high school. And my mom showed up to Victoria's house with a plastic bag with my toothbrush, my orthotics for my shoes, and a letter that she felt was legal enough to give up her parental rights to me. And she left. I didn't see her again for years. In order for CAS, Children's Aid Society, to make you a Crown Ward, you have to be a society ward first, which means you have, I believe it was 3 months. The parents have that time to do whatever they need to get done to get their kid back, like get a job or find housing or take this course or take this course. And because my mom was in Montreal, she was never making her court dates, even when the society was paying for her to come to represent herself so that she could get me back. She just never showed up to the court dates. And I remember being so afraid of seeing her, so afraid of making eye contact with her at the courthouse, because she was my mother. I loved her. She was all I knew. I didn't want to leave her, but at the same time, I knew that I needed stability. So I was a society ward, and at that time, they didn't have a foster home for me. So this was the time that I went to my grandparents for a couple of weeks, and then I came back and stayed at Matt, Tom, and Chris's place for about a week or so, and then I was moved into a foster home in Millbrook with an older couple, and it was a beautiful place. Like, there was like acres and acres of property. They were a very nice couple, but I was so upset at being in the middle of the country and starting high school. I had already lived in the country and knew what that was like for a couple of years in grade 4 and 5. I just wanted to be in town. My best friend at the time was Ian, and Ian was going to my high school, and I just wanted to spend time with him and listen to dark music and read his stories and watch him draw and just like chill out. So I was only there for maybe 3 or 4 days, and then my social worker called me and told me that there was a family that was willing to take me in, and they had 4 biological children. But they lived right around the corner from Ian, so off I went. I remember Kim coming and picking me up and taking me to where her 2 oldest were. I remember her daughter Eileen looking up at me and saying, "Who's she?" I remember being very nervous going into a home that had 4 biological kids. I believe the youngest was still in diapers, and Jerry was 2 or 3 years younger than me, but not like old enough to like hang out and be cool. And every time that court came up, my mom wouldn't come, and I would get one step closer to becoming a Crown Ward. And at the time, I remember I was very active with my lawyer, who was very good at representing my interests. And I became a Crown Ward. So my mom's parental rights were stripped for the first time ever, and I finally started to gain stability in my day-to-day life. Yet depression hit me really, really hard the middle of grade 9. I wanted to kill myself. I was too afraid to talk to anybody about it because I was already involved with a social worker, and I think I had started with counseling at the time. And this was like 96. I got put on antidepressants, and I've been on antidepressants ever since. Even though my life was stable in a way that I was getting 3 meals a day, I always knew where I was going to go to sleep at night. I always knew what was expected of me. It was a very hard transition to try to be a part of another family's life. And I'm very grateful that I did have that family, and I lived with them for 2.5 years until I was 16. And when I was 16, I moved out. So that's another story, but thanks for watching. Follow me on my profile, and I will continue more about my foster care experience living with the last family that I lived with until I was 16. Thanks for watching.